In this question here, pupils are given a set of data which shows how different species of bacteria have grown in relation to a control in the presence of two different types of treatment, ethanol and methanol. And they've been given a graph which looks like this. So it's partially plotted. It's got the data for this first species of bacteria, which gives us an indication of the scale. But what we've been asked to do is plot the vertical axis, add in a label and a scale, and then to plot the remaining bars. So we start by adding that label in, and what we'll always say is copy and paste. So here is your dependent variable here. Write that word for word on your y-axis. Pupils would normally write it vertically up and down the way here, but I can't do that, so I'm just going to write it as they would. So we say bacterial growth, and then the units are percentage of cover. Okay, word for word, no abbreviations. So that's for half of that first mark. We don't give out half marks, but that absolutely needs to be there for the first mark. And now we're going to move on to scale. So we can work out that this first bar here is sat at 54, and the ethanol treatment, this one here, must be 36. So we can work out the scale from that. So we know, for instance, that that's 30, and we know that this one is 50 based on the markings. Now the 0 is a big issue. For the question paper, it must sit here. It cannot sit in the middle. So there is no, and here is no. This would be for the x-axis, and it's discrete labels. So we can't have that one there. So we remove this, and we can't have the one in the corner because we have discrete labels on the x-axis. So this would be incorrect to add that there as well. So 0's here, and then we have to fill in all the others, and we've got to be extremely careful that it lines up perfectly with that marker. Oops, that's probably not perfect. So, and there we go. So for the first mark, these two aspects have got to be correct. Okay, so let's now move on to plotting the graph. So looking at this graph now that it's completed, we have got our vertical axis label and scale. We have plotted for Vibrio cholerae. We have got 45 here. We've got 44. We've plotted 4, and we've plotted 12. All of the tops of each bar top is nice and straight. It hits exactly where it should, and all of the boxes follow the same rules as the pre-plotted one. So they're all 4 boxes apart. The one for ethanol and methanol are butted up against each other, and we've got space on either side. And we've maintained those rules all the way across the remaining data points. What I'm going to show you now are some common mistakes where marks might be lost. So a couple of obvious things here where marks would be lost. So this first one, we've got abbreviation and change of units. Here we've got a common 0, which is wrong. This does not align with the marker, so that's wrong. That one's wrong, so is that. That one's okay, that one's good, that one doesn't. So you'd lose your mark for label and scale here, which is just actually 1 mark. Here, for this particular bacteria, we haven't correctly used the key, so there's no shading. And these boxes are both okay, but this one here is all wonky at the top, so it's not been drawn with a ruler, so no mark. And finally, for this plot here, even though it's just a little bit above the line for 12, it isn't bang on where it should be. There's a small tolerance that's given, but that would be inaccurate in this case. So again, that mark could be lost. So there's various things to keep in mind. We would always say use a pencil and a ruler because this is a classic example of what we see quite a lot at Nat 5 level. But yes, that's how you would achieve the 2 marks for that question.